here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chat with Cari. I'm Cari Havican, and I'm absolutely passionate about everything wellness, lifestyle, and personal development. And tonight, well, today, depending on what time you're watching, you may notice that we've got a few more faces on the chat with us today, some faces from the past guests that we have had. So please join me and welcome me and our lovely ladies who are going to join me on this chat for International Women's Day. So hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi Cari. Hi, everyone.
Fantastic. So tonight we are actually going to be talking about the women who have influenced these beautiful ladies here and why that is. And Amma and I actually were talking about this, I don't know, at least a month ago. And Amma saying, oh, talk about the woman who've influenced us. And I'm thinking, gosh, who is that for me, And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, these ladies I've interviewed in the past, the ladies that I want to interview in the future, they have all inspired me. And I am just so passionate about helping and supporting these ladies who are passionate about what they do and love what they do and love supporting other women. So these are some of my ladies who I am passionate about. So I'm just gonna, where are we? Oh, I don't even know how to do it now. So maybe we'll be okay, but if not, I'll work out how to mute you guys, or you can mute yourself if necessary. But here we go. Thanks, Shirley. Okay, well, Rhonda, you look like you're first on the list because you're the one that isn't muted yet. So Rhonda, why don't we start with you? So maybe you'd like to just introduce who you are and where you're located, because we're in different locations, and just what you do and who's influenced you as far as your life and business and everything.
Yeah. Thanks, Cari. I'm Rhonda White. I am a celebrant. I'm also a volunteer grief support worker and coordinator of that group in the Hunter. I'm from Newcastle. Women who've influenced me. Do you want me to go through all of them or just one at a time?
Well, yeah, maybe just one and why, and unless it's all the same reasoning, yeah.
No, they're all really different, actually.
Okay, cool.
The first one is an American lady who runs a Facebook page called One Fit Widow, and her name is, I'm going to say this properly, Michelle Steinke Baumgart. She's an author, a trainer, and a speaker, and I found her site probably 5 or 6 months after being widowed myself. Okay. And she's just full of positivity. I'm not the fit one, by the way, she is. But anyway, she taught me to honour the chapter 2 of my life and acknowledge the duality of life after loss and then even love after loss. And wow. She really inspired me to just get on with it, basically. Yep. Still honouring my past life, my late husband, our family together, but just that, you know what, I have to keep going. And I was only 51, so I did have to keep going.
Yeah.
So she's been a huge influence on me for about 7 years.
Wow. That sounds amazing, Rhonda, and especially, at a very critical time in your life, where, there's so much grief and everything going on at that time, finding somebody to support through that process is a great thing to find. Well done.
Yeah, she's raw and she's real, and she also shows her own vulnerability. So that made me really connect with her, and still today I follow her.
Beautiful, excellent. I know you've got a couple of other ladies there that maybe you'd like to share one or two more.
Okay, well, Eleanor Roosevelt. And again, she's only someone that I've come across in the last, 8 or 9 years. She was a wise woman, so ahead of her time. She was the first lady for 12 years during the Depression and war years. She was the first US representative on the Commission of Human Rights. And John F. Kennedy gave her the first presidential chair in the Commission of Status for Women in 1962. And she's just so inspirational, as in she's come from quite a privileged background, but had a very sad childhood, was orphaned by the time she was 10, and had lost a brother when she was 9, and she was raised by relatives. and she was she was a Roosevelt who married a Roosevelt, so she's come from a quite wealthy family, but her aim has always been humanitarian, equality with women, racial equality, and she's just got some of the most amazing sayings that I love. And one of them in particular is, you have to accept whatever comes, and the only important thing is that you meet it with the best you have to give. And I really love that one.
Yeah, beautiful. Actually, that's really interesting because I wasn't aware of that history of Eleanor Roosevelt. I don't know about the rest of you, if you were aware of that part of her life or not. So yeah, that's really interesting to know that. And it's always really interesting to me to know, you know, like going from that sort of place and going into, you know, that you know, place of where she was so influential to so many people. And like you say, I mean, I'm more aware of her quotes, I guess, not all of them obviously, but I am more aware of her quotes than I am about her and her life. Yeah. So wow, what a great inspiration.
Fascinating woman. Given she was born in the 1880s, fascinating woman.
Yeah. Okay. One last one.
Okay, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, whose name was Rita. She was one of 8 children, of which only 4 survived. So she saw the loss of 4 brothers in her lifetime. She lost her own mum at 14. She lost a child at birth, gave birth to twins, and only one survived, and she almost died herself. She lost another child at the age of 9 and then was widowed in her early 40s. So quite a tragic start to life. But she got on with life. She got a job. She worked. She was always happy. She was just so full of life. She was the queen of revamping before it was ever popular, the make, do and mend person. And she was so happy and positive and down to earth. And she was an amazing woman.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And it's great to have that inspiration in the family dynamic, you know, because it's such an influential part of growing up, isn't it? And having that influence in your life right from that starting point. Yeah. Wonderful. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing, Rhonda. Really appreciate it. Excellent. So Rhonda, I might get you to mute, and I'm just going by my screen as to who I'm seeing here. I don't know who you guys are seeing, what order, but Julie, I'll go with you next if you'd like to unmute.
Sorry, Cari, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to bear in mind that my internet might go. So maybe
go with you first. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Julie, I don't want to jump in, but I do want to just be on track in case it cuts out, okay?
Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, so the women who've influenced me, I would say, because of time, I'm going to merge the 3 of them together. My mother, my grandmother, my mother, and her sister. The reason they've been such a big influence on me is because from infancy, they've been the women who I've been looking at, you know, experiencing, modeling, being nurtured by, having that direct influence on a day-to-day from baby till this age, and learning everything I need to learn in terms of my values, my opinions, my attitudes, the way you set up a home, the way you love children, the way you, and also actually watching them to see what I shouldn't do, right? Because every generation learns a bit more. When we know better, we do better. So I am able to add on to whatever wisdom and gifts that they gave me. So I would say the women directly in my family and in my family line, they've been very influential. And then I was thinking about it when you said, and I think maybe the first time I started to look at a woman that influenced me outside of my home and these ladies that I've told you, maybe it was Margaret Thatcher. I'm a child from the 80s, you know, and to have a first female prime minister in England. And at the time when she was prime minister, I think it'll be easier now because women are more powerful. We've got more, we've made strides in equality and being seen in leadership position. But now, looking back, what it must have been like for her to be called the Iron Lady and all the sort of negative association when a woman is strong and she has a voice, she has her opinion, and to use it. And you see what it's like in Parliament here, even if you are male. The opposition that she must have faced, she's been massively influential on me, and how she coped and pushed and did what she could for many, many years for the country. So yeah, I'd say Margaret Thatcher. And then more recently, probably the women who I coach. I love a comeback story. I love a woman. So my mission is to empower women to find their strength, particularly when they're mothers, so that they can do motherhood alive. Not that we're dead when we're doing motherhood, but what is it like to navigate through raising the next generation when you feel total love, acceptance, celebrating yourself, to feel at home in your body, all of that. And I love to work with a woman who's lost or stuck or stopped believing in herself because of things that she's gone through, and to see her become alive, illuminate, and get excited about life and looking forward to things and making plans. They really influence me, because even though it looks like I'm giving to them, really they're giving a hell amount back to me. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Amma. And I know many of you who watch our chats know that Emma's usually based in London, but if you're not aware of that, she's normally in London, England. But today she's actually in Ghana, which is why we've got the internet potential of, you know, popping out. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I love that, you know, your mother, her sister, your grandmother have had such a huge influence, a bit like you, Rhonda, you know, that familial influence in the growing up era, and that, but also, I mean, gosh, Margaret Thatcher, I mean, what a major influence she would have been, you know, over those years that she was in office. And like you say, the flack of being in such a powerful position and having to make such critical decisions, and particularly that era of time, you know, and getting called those sort of names, Iron Lady, etc., and that, but having to override all of that to lift up the nation and everything. So yeah, wow, that's fantastic. And of course your clients, I mean, they I'm sure all of us, you know, without exception, you know, with what we do, our clients would also be influencing us and inspiring us with, you know, their growth and development and whatever is happening for them. So thank you, Amma, I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's go over to Julie.
Hello, it looks like Emma's just dropped off, and I was just going to say, I grew up in the UK. Emma, I grew up in the UK I'm a 65 baby, so yeah, I was around for all of that kind of generation and era too. And yeah, very much like you. Yeah, lots of female role models from my childhood, particularly my grandmother on my father's side. But I wanted to mention two women that really have influenced my life and probably the direction that I'm heading in, and I have been heading in for a while now in terms of my role as coach, mentor and trainer. The first was actually somebody that no one probably will ever have heard of in the group. Her name is Dr. Kay Sharp, and she is a microbiologist by trade. When I first left school, I guess I took a bit of a different career path than many of the girls, the women in my generation. You know, still when I left school in 83, it was very much the expected thing that you would, you know, maybe go and work in a shop for a while, then you'd get married and you'd have kids. And there were very few women that were going to university or going on to higher education. I was the first in my family to do that, and that was quite, you know, shocking for a lot of my family. My mum and dad, both eldest of 7, so big family, and it was really unheard of at that stage. And when I started working we were working in tuberculosis and leprosy research. I was working as a technician, and Kay was my boss and my mentor. And she, very unlike most women in that era, you know, we talked just then about Margaret Thatcher. Kay was the most gentle, calm and serene person. I mean, literally the word serene comes to mind when I think of Kay. And she showed me that there was a different way to do business, to work, and not have to keep being very ambitious and pushing and driving and standing up for yourself all the time and fighting for everything. And she I guess we all felt in that era that we needed to do that. We needed to be the pioneers and forcing our way through and saying, you know, we're as good as men and we need to stand up for ourselves. But Kay had this really, I still am in touch with her. She has this amazing persona of just calm serenity and a way of getting things done that was just so at ease with the world. If she had to give bad news or, you know, in any way kind of pull you into line on anything, she did it with a very gentle smile and a little bit of a giggle. And it was just, she had this amazing way forward. And she stuck with me all through my career. I moved into corporate roles in large, fast-moving consumer goods companies. And that was very, you know, very ambitious kind of environment, very forceful way of working. And she would always come back and ground me. She would always bring me back to, you don't have to be like the men. You don't have to do business like the men. You can do it your way. And that was just such a powerful message and a powerful, and she I don't know if she consciously knew she was doing that or whether she just literally, she just stood there and everyone kind of went, wow, you're amazing. So yeah, Kay was particularly influential for me through all my corporate career. And in 2009, the other lady that I wanted to mention is, some of you may have heard of Petrea King. She started Quest for Life Foundation out at Dunedoo. Petrea and I connected in 2009 when I was diagnosed with a brain tumour, and I was completely blindsided. I was in a very high profile corporate role, working my butt off with 2 young children, you know, big mortgage, the whole, you know, I was living the dream. I had the dream house, the dream everything. And then I got sick. And Petrea was just amazing. I actually connected with Petrea via an ABC radio. It was the local Central Coast radio show that they were interviewing Petrea, and she was talking about, as she does, about illness, how to cope with grieving. And she was particularly on this topic talking about how to help children cope with, you know, situations like this. And I called into the show and had a chat with Petrea, and she was the most giving and generous and wonderful person in giving of her time. She actually asked me to stay on the line after the call. We had a long chat. She came to visit me in hospital after my surgery.
Oh, wow.
She sent me a pack of, it gives me goosebumps even now talking about it. She sent me some books for my children, some rainbow ribbons, which was an invention of hers to stay connected with your loved ones, whether they're on earth or in heaven. She is just the most amazing, inspiring lady. I've met her several times in the last few years. She helped guide me through things like my marriage breakdown. And again, she was just so generous of her time. And she inspires me so much in my work now, where I focus very much on helping my coaching clients to follow their dreams, to dream big, to set some really amazing goals and go after them with flow. So it's kind of a combination of the Kay persona and the Petrea persona. But Petrea she has such strong sense of purpose and of giving back. And she's just the most amazing woman. If you don't know much about Petrea, have a look. She's got a great suite of books and things too. So they're the 2 I really wanted to mention. And of course, much like you, my clients absolutely inspire me every single day. So yeah.
Wonderful, Julie. Oh my gosh. I love that you've touched on 2 women who, well, Kay in particular, with that gentleness and that softness, that it's okay as a woman to be in the roles that you had at that time and be that like that, as opposed to having to push and everything, and having somebody of such great influence in your life at that time is so good. And then of course Petrea, I mean, for those that don't know, do Google her, because she is such a, well, if you're in that realm, she's a well-known person who has helped so many people with cancer and that. And Amma's popped off again. So yeah, do check her out in that. And look, I think what's coming from that side of things is touching, it's kind of like, to me, what popped into my mind when you were talking, Julie, was Kay and Petrea are kind of the yin to the yang of the life and the work that you were doing in that time, you know, and it's sort of like that balance needed to come into play. So yeah, gosh, how influential, and to meet both of them in such a critical times in your life.
Yeah, and I think interestingly, meeting people like that, meeting a woman particularly like that, and the stories and the way they influence us, it can go on for generations, and it goes on for many, many years. So, you know, I'm passing those stories down to my daughter and to other women, and yeah, it's just the impact resonates through multiple years. So for me, the Kay story, even though I didn't take it all on board straight away, it's resonated, and it helped me to move past that feeling of needing to be so driven all the time. So yeah, it's not just an impact, you know, a story that we tell ourselves once and go, oh yeah, I did that once. It resonates through our whole lives often.
Yeah, and you keep referring back because there's something there that may have resonated at a time, but as we've gone through life, there's another level to that resonation, and it's sort of like, wow, I didn't think of it this way or that way or whatever. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. Miss Julie. Not Miss Julie. Miss Shirley. Oh my gosh. Go
Cari, Rhonda and Julie. I'm Shirley Dalton, based in Newcastle, and I work with leaders, managers, business owners. I created the Blueprint for Business Freedom, which is my sweet spot for coaching people, working with systems and running leadership experiences. And it's really people, process and possibility. And as I was listening to the other ladies here, I was looking at my list, and it's really interesting, the people that we've chosen and why we've chosen them. And as I looked at my list, I've chosen really strong, independent women, and yet they weren't deliberately teaching me. They were just being themselves. And often I'll talk about one of my greatest mentors was Kip McGrath. But alongside Kip was Dagnia McGrath. And she was just the most amazing lady. And, you know, we were in this private business, which listed on the stock exchange and, you know, had franchises all around the world. And she was instrumental in the curriculum. And her biggest passion and her belief was that if you can educate the women, you'll educate the family. And, you know, just the way that she held herself, she was just so strong. And one of the things that I really admired about her was if she didn't want to do something, or she didn't want to get into something, I'd go into her office and I'd say, oh, you know, what about this? I've got to answer them. And she'd look at me and she'd say, no, I'm just going to ignore that. And I used to like just about have a fit, and I'd think, no, but you've got to close it, but you've got to answer it. She says, no, I'll just ignore that. And she would, and nothing would happen. You know?
She had her mindset.
Yeah. And so I learned not to worry. You know, that I just because it was somebody else asking didn't mean that I had to go and answer to that. So yeah, I learned so much from working with both her and Kip. And again, another manager that I had, it was interesting for me listening to our themes, and mine was a lot of the people that I've worked with, and you know, didn't realize until afterwards what an impact that they'd had. And I had another manager up in Queensland, Sue Smots, and I went into her room one day and I had this list, you know, it was as big as a toilet roll. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I can't get all of this through. And she said, sit down. I sat down and she said, righto, read me the list. And as I'm reading this list out, she goes, cross it off, cross it off, cross it off. And I'm like, again, oh, but I can't cross this off. This is on my list. I've got these things to do. She cross it off. And at the end of it, I had about 5 things. And like, she was adamant, like, if you do any of that thing that I've told you to cross off, like, you're in big trouble. And just as I'm hearing myself here, there's this theme of, you haven't got to do everything. You know, you can let some of the stuff go. And another great quote that she said to me, which I still quote to people today, and that is, the first rule of management, Shirl, it's not a personality contest. It's a lot of us think that we have to be liked, and that's not the reason for being in management. And finally, one of my great role models was actually Princess Di. So, I was about her vintage. And I'm not a girly girl, I don't have the nails and the clothes and all of that. And I used to just admire. I mean, I know she had, lots of money and could, I don't know, how do you say it, people looking after her clothes and that. But I just used to admire that. And I just had the opportunity recently to talk to Margaret McNaughton, who was married to John McNaughton, the mayor at the time when the Queen came to visit Newcastle. And the Queen just recently passed, and Margaret was saying, she was one of our role models because we didn't have celebrities in those days. So we used to look to the Queen for our fashion sense. And I thought, wow, it's interesting because I looked to Diana, not that I copied much, but I just always admired it. And then that got me thinking about the Queen. And I actually really admire her for her dedication and her commitment. I'm sure there must have been days where she could have just told everybody to run away, and yet she was in that role for 70 years. And I'm not sure that I could have done that. And so I really admire that.
Yeah, wonderful. And that's actually interesting. There's a theme there of that commitment to, the cause, for want of a better description, with, I can't remember how you pronounce Kip's wife's name. Dagnia, yeah. And the other lady you mentioned, that commitment to just, this is what's happening, and don't worry about the rest of it, sort of thing and everything. But yeah, I totally agree with you with the Queen. I mean, the commitment to a life of service like that, and being in the public eye in all realms of not just her, but her whole family and extended family, and how that had an influence on her overall. I mean, wow, that's amazing. So yeah, wow, gosh. Yeah, ladies, oh my gosh, this is good. I hope everybody who's watching is taking notes, because you've got some really inspiring people to consider, looking and doing some more I suppose, looking them up and finding out more about these people and that. And I've already mentioned these ladies inspired me enough to, want to bring them back on and talk about this for International Women's Day. And if I look at my own beyond these ladies, I'm thinking, well, my sister, one of my sisters, she's now passed, but she raised a family of 11 children, and I don't know, I've lost count of how many grandchildren and potential great grandchildren. I don't even know if there are any, because I've lost count of everybody. But I just look at the life that she had, and how there was that dedication to obviously the family, but it even went beyond the family, and how everybody was always welcome in her home. And I can remember her putting, plates on the counter, mum, dad, this one, that one, so and so, because otherwise she would miss somebody out, and then, you might turn up unexpectedly, oh, stay for dinner, and that, and somehow she would make a meal for 11, 12, 13 people, somehow stretched to 15, 16 people or whatever, just by adding a bit of this and taking a bit of that off that one, or, whatever it was. And I just really admire that, plus also going into the workforce again after over 30 years of, being a stay-at-home, housewife and mother. And then more recently, I don't know if any of you guys watched the memorial for Olivia Newton-John, who passed away end of last year. And I was struck by how many times it was mentioned through the memorial that her songs were healing. And I thought, isn't that just amazing, that something that she was gifted at, was obviously passionate about, and along with obviously what she's done with the research hospital and everything for cancer, has had such an impact on so many people around the world. And yes, when you listen to her songs and you listen to the core from her heart, I guess, how there is that underlying healing within that. And I just thought, following your passion. So for me, it's women who follow their passion and are true to themselves, and I suppose they don't they're okay to be them, you know. They're not worried about how does this look or how does that look, you know. And I know sort of for the majority of us, our era, it's all about, you know, oh no, you can't do that because of this, that, the other thing, and that. So to be able to stand up against that, I really admire those ladies. And Rhonda and I were actually at a event today for International Women's Day, and the speakers were wonderful in that, but the key speaker, she was a former detective superintendent, something. I don't know the titles and that, but she was in the police force for like 36 years, and oh my gosh, the stories that she told and how she wrapped them up into, you know, the worthiness of, you know, woman and the influence on woman and everything like that. It was just really, really passionate. And there was a young lady there who they had connected, and this lady was going to be one of her mentors. And I at the end of her speech, I said to her, I says, you have got an awesome mentor with that police detective, ex-police detective. I think, wow, that's just incredible to have that influence from so long. So yeah, so that's my sort of, you know, influence there and that. So wow, what a great night it had. Well, I keep saying night, but I don't know what time people are watching. So what a great time it's been to chat with all of you about who's influenced you. I really, really appreciate all of your time in that. Is there anything any of you would like to share before we sign off the live? Yep, Rhonda.
It's just interesting that Julie was talking about the lady who was serene and didn't have to be that strong, amazing power woman. This afternoon, I had a Zoom meeting with my fellow grief counsellor support people in the Hunter, and I actually did a little address about Women's Day, International Women's Day, and how through history we've been seen as healers, etc., etc. And I think I finished it with something like, I love the way that as that group of women, we could talk about our softness, our femininity, but still be those powerful, strong women who really make a difference in life without getting up there and the rah, 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 and having to be the same as men or better than men. We just appreciated the skills we had and the difference we could make to others' lives with those skills as the women that we are.
Yeah. Great summary. I love that, Rhonda. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Julie, you were going to say something as well?
Oh, yeah, really. Thanks for saying that, Rhonda. I think that's so important. I think maybe we're hopefully lucky that we're now experiencing that next generation of women that feel that we can be ourselves rather than have to be what we think is the stereotypical right thing to be. And I think that gives us all so much more ability to be soft and show up with our yin and our yang, rather than just thinking that we have to conform to a certain pattern. So yeah, thank you. This has been really uplifting. Thank you so much, Cari.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I really, really have loved you guys being here. Fantastic. Shirley, you want to say something there before we?
Yeah, just thank you, Cari, for putting this on and for giving us the time to reflect. And, you know, as I get older now, I'm usually the oldest person in the room, which I look around and I think, but it's so great to have that experience, you know, and to be able to look and see the things now, like Doug did for me. You know, she was 20 years older than me, and to be able to look and go, oh, you know, you can ignore it. And, you know, and I think it's great that we've had role models, and hopefully that we can be role models for people coming along as well.
Absolutely. And just on that note, Shirley, one of the quotes, and I haven't got it in front of me, so I don't even know where it is actually, but one of the quotes I said today, because at this event I do a short sort of meditation, and I added a quote from, oh gosh, I can't even remember who it was now. Oh, Hillary Clinton. Oh my God, I had all these other names, all the names that you guys were telling me. And it was something along the lines of hoping that, you know, the younger generation, the younger girls would look at like something like this situation or we're doing here, or, you know, other events, and see the potential that they had to be able to grow and develop and become powerful in their own right, in their own way, you know. So I think we sort of have summed that up. And if this has been watched by anybody that's younger, you know, that, you know, you've got some amazing role models just here, and plus the ones that these ladies have mentioned, and anybody else that, you know, influences you in any way. So, you know, just step into that self-power, that self-igniting journey, and be yourself, but enjoy the journey. So yeah. All right, well, thank you so much if you've been watching us live. I really appreciate it. And if you're watching the replay, thank you very much. And thank you, ladies, and Amma also, who's fallen off the webinar from Ghana. So thank you for joining us, Amma, if you're watching the replay or watching us on the Facebook. And I really appreciate all of your time. And who knows, maybe we'll do it again next year. We'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be different influences, who knows. All right, everybody, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you all next time. Bye for now.